On today's show, the first round is set. The Cavs are taking on the Miami Heat to open up the playoffs. We'll talk about what that matchup looks like. Plus, I'll give my series prediction on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. In today's episode, brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. The Cleveland Cavaliers will open up the 2025 playoffs tomorrow, 7 o'clock, Rocket Arena. We've known that for a few days. Now we know who's going to be on the other bench. It's going to be the Miami Heat. They beat the Atlanta Hawks in the third Eastern Conference play-in game, meaning Miami advances to the first round. And of course, there are plenty of thoughts on this matchup. So let's dive into it, because Miami is a team that I think you hear the Miami Heat and instantly, if you're a certain type of fan, basketball watcher, there can be a sense of fear that comes into play with Miami, because Miami has obviously been a very, very good organization in the NBA for quite a long time. They have had success in this spot where they've won the final play-in game to reach the NBA playoffs and gone on a run to the NBA finals. This Miami team is not that Miami team. So that Miami team obviously had Jimmy Butler. This Miami team has Andrew Wiggins in his place. Now, I don't think that this Heat team is an absolute pushover like maybe Atlanta may have been. So I do think that the Cavs maybe got a little bit of a tough break with the Heat pulling that one out in overtime on Friday night. But I still don't see this as a series where the Cavs should struggle. I don't know if this is a series I expect the Cavs to sweep, and we'll get to my prediction coming up in segment number 3 today. But I don't think that this is a series where the Cavs should struggle. This is not the same Miami team that went to the finals as an 8 seed. This is not the same Miami team that was a 1 seed the year before that and went to the conference finals before losing to the Boston Celtics. Like, this is not a team that is that good. Miami went 35-47, I believe it was, or maybe it was 37-45 in the regular season. They were not a good basketball team. Now, to be fair to them, I don't even think the word weird begins to describe what this season was for Miami. Jimmy Butler was there, and then he was suspended, and then he was back, and then he was suspended again, and then they weren't going to trade him, and then they did trade him, and then just, it was, I think for the Heat, they are a team that is better than their record, but they're also not a team that I look at as, man, that's a real playoff threat. So some of the basics here. Miami was 21st in offense this year in the regular season, offensive rating of 112.4. They were 9th in defense. They had a defensive rating of 112, which is one spot behind where the Cavs finished in 8th. And that is really I don't want to say it's the advantage the Heat have over the Cavs, but I do think it's the thing that, okay, if they're going to hang around in games in this series, it's because they're going to be able to win some battles defensively. And this will be a very good test for the Cavs offensively, that an offensive unit that has not maybe been as good later in the season as it was earlier in the season. And those offensive ratings and defensive ratings combine to make the net rating, right? Like, if you're not new to this, you know, offensive rating minus defensive rating is your net rating. And Miami's net rating was 0.4. Why is that interesting? Because, as I mentioned, Miami was not good in the regular season. They didn't win a lot of games in the regular season. They were not a good regular season basketball team. The record does not reflect that of a good regular season basketball team, but they have a positive differential. They outscored their opponents. Their offensive rating is better than their defensive rating. And that is something that raises an eyebrow. They are one of 2 teams in the NBA, and Sacramento is the other one. They're one of two teams in the NBA that finished this year with a record below 500 versus a net rating that says, well, actually, this team probably should have been above 500. If you go to Basketball Reference, every team, like if you go to a team's page, like for this season on Basketball Reference, there is always a expected wins and losses thing. Basically, it's a formula that spits out, okay, a team with this point differential typically has a record of this. Like a great exercise is Donovan Mitchell's first year in Cleveland. The Cavs won 51 games and their expected win-loss was like 54 wins. They kind of underperformed what their metrics said they should be. I'm not sure what it said about them this year. Miami has the profile, has the statistical or analytical profile, whatever it is that you want to say. They have that of a team that says they should have won 42 games this season. And that's kind of how I feel about this team. I kind of look at Miami and say, you know what? They went through a lot of stuff. They're probably a team that I should look at as they were 500. They finished a few games below 500, but they were a 500 basketball team. I think that's a fair way to look at things. And also, you know, the Jimmy Butler trade was a really big deal for them, not necessarily because Jimmy was playing great basketball for them, but I just think the uncertainty that they had to deal with, you know, you look at that trade was made on February 6th, and obviously Jimmy hadn't been playing for the team for a little while before that. But with that, after that date, Miami lost 17 of its next 21 games. They fell apart. And then they played better down the stretch. They had a nice winning streak, a 6-game winning streak that included wins over Golden State with Jimmy Butler and his return to Miami. Boston, they beat the Hawks in that winning streak. So it isn't as if they were just bad the entire rest of the time. They had an 11-game winning streak that actually started the final matchup between Cleveland and Miami this year was in Cleveland. The Cavs won that game, and that was the first of 11 straight losses for the Heat. So I do think that, you know, I don't want to say they caught a bad break because they sort of made their own bed with Jimmy Butler, but I do think that certainly influences what their final record is. And I think that this is a team that if you look at everything should tell you, okay, they are better than what their record says they are. Now, I don't necessarily look at them as having a huge number of advantages over the Cavs, but I do think there are things they do that can make things difficult for Cleveland. And the first thing that I think of is that zone defense that they play. They play more zone defense than anybody in the NBA. According to Synergy, Miami plays zone defense on 11.4% of their defensive possessions, which is significant. I believe there's a significant margin between them and number two. If you remember that last game that the Cavs played against the Heat, which was back in March, it was for Cleveland. It was the second game of a back-to-back. They played in Chicago the night before. It was during the winning streak that they were on, the 16-game winning streak that they were on. And it was near we were getting closer to the end of that winning streak. And Cavs won that game 112-107 to move to 52-10 on the season. That wasn't a game where the Cavs really ever played well. Offensively, here's their quarter-by-quarter breakdown. They scored 36 in the first, 27 in the second, 23 in the third, and 26 in the fourth. So basically, because they won the first quarter there, they won the game because Miami only lost the final three quarters by 1 point, and it was that 1 point the Cavs outscored them by in the fourth quarter. But if you think back to that game, Miami played a lot of zone in that game. Now, the zone that Miami plays, they have perfected. They do it better than anybody. I talked to people on the team that night after the Cavs beat the Heat and just was like, you know, what's the deal with the zone? Like, why does it make it so good? And there were a couple of guys that essentially mentioned, you know, they've been doing it forever. Like, it is so ingrained in who they are that it's very, very difficult to go against because they sort of move as one person. It's like five guys moving as one on the defensive end of the floor. And when you throw that in on what night was that? I think it was a Wednesday night. When you throw that in on a random Wednesday night, when the Cavs very clearly had not prepared for that game, like they played the night before in Chicago, and there's only so much prep you can do for a regular season game. But the fact that it was the second night of a back-to-back for the Cavs and the Heat did not play the night before, throwing the zone out there made it more effective for Miami because the Cavs really had zero time to prepare for it. They probably watched a few clips of it during their pregame meeting, which happens with like a half hour left on the countdown clock. And when, like, if that's what you're doing to prepare, that's kind of a tough place to be in. So I think that explains a lot of the success Miami has. And trust me, they're really, really good at this. Really, really good at this. But I think because of now, and I'm not going to sit here and act like the Cavs have a ton of time to prep for the series, finding out less than 48 hours before tip-off of game one. But I do think that they'll be more prepared for the zone defense. And I actually think Miami's going to run it a little bit less in this series because the Cavs should have the ability to prepare for it a little bit better. The other thing to keep an eye on here is Tyler Hero. And Tyler had a really great playing game for the Heat on, what was that, Wednesday when they played Chicago. He had, I believe, 38 points. He was awesome in that game. And then when they played the Hawks on Friday night, he had 30 points. So he's been playing really good basketball. He's going to be the guy that the Cavs have to try and shut down. And how they line up with their starting lineup defensively will be interesting. I would anticipate that the Cavs are going to put probably Max Strus on Tyler Hero to start this game. And they're going to put Donovan Mitchell on Andrew Wiggins. And that is just because Andrew he's not a very aggressive player. Like, he's a super athletic player and he can give everybody problems because he's got that kind of talent, but he doesn't have a very aggressive mindset. And he really never has. Outside of a postseason run with the Golden State Warriors, I think it's really fair to call Andrew's career relatively disappointing. And I say that as somebody who covered him up close in Minnesota for a couple of seasons. And he's not necessarily been great. And I actually think that is one of the areas where the Cavs can really take advantage of Miami, is when Andrew Wiggins is on the floor. So we're going to talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and so much more. Experts ready to help take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who's delivered incredible results on a similar project in the past. And posting a job is free and simple. Within a day, you'll get multiple qualified candidates to choose from. And instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That is Upwork.com, 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 to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And make sure you're also subscribed to the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter. You'll get expert analysis, insider insights, and all the playoff action delivered straight to your inbox for free. Plus, as a subscriber, you'll be entered to win one of these three amazing prizes: a $2,500 Best Buy gift card, a $300 Gametime gift card, and a $200 Fanatics gift card. It's easy and free to enter. Simply subscribe between now and April 30th to be automatically entered to win. Head on over to lockedondaily.com. If you're watching the video on YouTube, you can see it right down there in that corner. lockedondaily.com. That is lockedondaily.com for more. So Andrew Wiggins is the newest piece to Miami's puzzle because they acquired him as part of the package for Jimmy Butler. And I don't think that the Andrew Wiggins experiment has necessarily gone really well for Miami. And Wiggins has been hurt throughout part of this run, so it's not necessarily all on him. And these metrics that I'm about to throw out, they never point to one player specifically. It's never about only that player, because you have to factor in the circumstances around said player, which we can't really do here. Like, I don't watch enough of Miami to have that context. I'm sure at some point during the series, be talking with Wes Goldberg of Locked On Heat about this. But Since Wiggins made his debut in Miami, Miami's offense ranks 19th, which, for the regular season, they were 21st. So it's slightly better, but there are only 2 playoff teams that have been worse offensively since he made his debut. Only 2. Orlando, who watching them play offense is ugly, very ugly, and New York. New York's offense can be explained by the fact that Jalen Brunson missed so much time in that stretch. Like, he missed 4 weeks during that stretch. So Miami has an offensive rating in the 17 games that Andrew Wiggins has played. They have an offensive rating of 109.6 when he's on the floor. I don't think I need to explain to you that that's not good, but that's not good. So 106 or 109.6, excuse me, would rank 26th in the NBA for the full season. So they essentially transform into who the Toronto Raptors are offensively when Andrew Wiggins is on the floor. Obviously, that is not very good. When he's off the floor, Miami's offensive rating is 115. So that is much better than what the Toronto Raptors are. That 115 number would rank 11th. So the difference between them being a borderline top 10 offense and the Toronto Raptors has been Andrew Wiggins being on the floor. Now, of course, this is not all on Andrew. This is not only because of him, but it's something that matters. So when Wiggins is on the floor, Miami's net rating is minus 3.6. They are outscored by 3.6 points per 100 possessions when Andrew Wiggins is on the floor. When he's off the floor, they outscore opponents by 4.5 points per 100 possessions. For a starter, that is a massive difference. That is a massive difference. Now, Wiggins didn't play in the game that the Heat played in Cleveland in March, the only game that they've played with him on the roster. He did not play because of an injury in that game. So we have not seen the Cavs play Andrew Wiggins with the Miami Heat. But I do think that this is an area where the Cavs can take advantage. Like, they need to win those minutes. And Wiggins, of course, is going to play a lot as a starter. He's going to play 25 plus minutes per game, probably more than that in the postseason. But that is where they really should be able to take advantage. They should be able to win those minutes, because so often with what Wiggins does, it can be considered stuff that just sort of empty calories, right? Like, it's not necessarily, you don't look like he'll probably have a game with 22 points, and he's probably going to take 20 shots, and he'll get to the free throw line, 6 times in that game. And you're going to look at the box score, or you're going to just listen to Locked On Cavs the next day, and we'll talk about it. And be like, really, Andrew Wiggins scored 22 points. Like, it's not going to be a very impactful 22 points when he does get to that number for the most part. Now, of course, he's capable of having very impactful games, but he really hasn't for Miami. And that is one of the things that's one of the areas where the Cavs should be able to have quite a bit of success. And the other thing that I found about Miami as I was doing some digging for this series is thinking about what went wrong for the Cavs in the second half of the season. Because obviously, after that 16-game winning streak concluded, they weren't their best selves, right? They went 14-8 in their final 22 games. It's just, they were not the best basketball team at the end of the season. I don't think that matters a ton. I don't think momentum carries over to the playoffs, especially with a full week off. And the other thing, too, that I probably should have mentioned earlier, the best news about the 8 seed that the Cavs got on Friday is that game went to overtime. Like, that was an exhausting game, both for Atlanta and Miami. And I would be saying the same thing if Atlanta won this game. But that is a game where it's like, oh, man, like, game 1, the Cavs should look really good because Miami should be exhausted. They've had to play twice this week when the Cavs were off. They had to play overtime on Friday night. Like, that should be something that I look at as a big advantage for the Cavs over Miami early on in the season or series. So what are the things that the Cavs didn't do well during their backslide in the second half of the season? They didn't shoot the ball that well, right? That's been well documented that they were 21st in three-point percentage from March 3rd on. They allowed too many offensive rebounds, and opponents hit a bunch of threes against them. Like, those 3 things were the formula for beating the Cavs late in the season. Well, Miami does shoot the ball well from 3, but they don't take a lot of them. Since February 10th, they're shooting 37% from beyond the arc, which is a really good number. That's 9th in the NBA in that time. Much better than what the Cavs have been. However, They are just 22nd in attempts. Like their game plan offensively is not going to be to just hoist the ball and let it fly. And I do think that the Cavs have a significant math advantage. And I do expect, regardless of the opponent, I do expect the Cavs to shoot the ball better right now than they did at the end of the season, because I think a lot of that is just, when your legs get tired, the jumper is kind of a thing that can go, right? And I think the Cavs were certainly victims of that in the second half of the season. The other thing, Cavs have allowed far too many offensive rebounds when they were not at their best. I think part of that can be explained due to fatigue as well. Miami does not crash the offensive glass. They're not a team, and of course, every team is going to run into offensive rebounds, but the Heat are not a team that sells out to try and get offensive boards. They would much rather get back and play better transition defense than try and chase offensive boards. That is the one thing that I look at, say, okay, that's a good thing for Cleveland, because Miami 26th in offensive rebounding rate since February 10th. That's significant for the Cavs. Like, that is not an area where I expect them to struggle in this series. Now, there will be times Miami going to play double big with Bam Adebayo at the 4 and Kel'el Ware at the 5. Those are lineups where, we saw that in Miami when the Cavs played in Miami for the second time this season in late January, I believe it was. That's kind of when they started going to that. And I do like Ware. I think he's a good player. I just don't know that he's necessarily going to be ready for this series. And then the other thing, as far as the 3-point shooting goes, Miami's 19th in opponent 3-point shooting percentage. So they do a good job actually of limiting how many threes opponents get. They're 12th in the NBA since February 10th in opponent 3-point attempts, but they are 19th in opponent 3-point makes. So that tells me that opponents might not be getting a ton of looks, but the looks that they are getting against Miami tend to be pretty good looks. And I think that is a really good sign for the Cavs. Now, how long is this series going to last? I'm not going to act like I'm not going to pick the Cavs to win it, but let's talk through a prediction next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it can be easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending right in one place. So you stop managing your money and start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan for some of those long-term goals that I know you have. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDON, NBA for half off your first year. Today's show is also brought to you by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build and practicing every detail to get the best results, but no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier, and at Epicor, the All-Stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your whole supply chain is easier. Managing logistics is easier. Responding to price changes is easier. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global visions, they'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most out of every hardworking minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier takes the lead. Discover your success at easierwithepicor.com. That is easierwithepicor.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network. The Cavs are going to win this series. They are. I'm not going to dance around that. I'm not going to try and build up into some big prediction. The Cavs are going to win this series. I do think there will be maybe 2 games maybe even 3 games where Miami pushes the Cavs. I expect the Cavs to have at least 1 blowout win in this series, probably 2 blowout wins in this series. I expect them to be pushed a couple of times. I actually expect Miami to win a game here. I think I have too much respect for Eric Spoelstra and that Miami organization to say, no, the Cavs are going to sweep the series. They're going to win all the games by 20 plus points. Is that possible? Sure. I'd be surprised. I just think Miami as an organization, Miami as a basketball team with what Miami stands for, and maybe I'm giving too much respect to the Heat, but with everything that they've done and what they've navigated this year, I just don't think that this team is as bad as its record says it is. I'm picking the Cavs to win this series in 5 games. One of the games Miami's going to get, probably game 3 or game 4 in Miami. I expect the Cavs to win big, as I mentioned a couple of times. I expect them to win close a couple of times too. I think of the 4 wins that they will get in this series, one of them's probably a blowout. One of them's probably by like 15 points where they pull away in the 4th quarter. And then I would bet the other 2 to be under 10 points. I don't think that this is going to be like the closest first round series blowout that we've ever seen. If you're a Cavs fan and think back to the 2017 first round series against the Indiana Pacers, where the Cavs swept the series and they won by like an average of 3.5 points in that series. What was, I think, the closest sweep ever in NBA history. I don't anticipate that. Like, I think that there will be a game where the Cavs just, everything's clicking and they dominate Miami. But I expect there to be a game where the Cavs can't pull it out. And ultimately, I think this is a really good first test. I think that the path of least resistance may have been better for the Cavs. I think Atlanta winning that game Friday probably would have been better news for the Cavs. But I do think that this is something that's going to test the Cavs in a way that the Hawks were not. I think this is going to test the Cavs in a way that certainly no other team coming out of this play-in would have. We could talk about what Orlando is going to do physically against Boston. I think that's a different kind of test because I think Miami is going to make the Cavs think a lot. And I think they're going to need to not only outplay, but they're going to need to out-execute. They're going to need to, at times, outthink Miami. And I think that this is as big of a test for Kenny Atkinson as I can imagine in the first round. Not because Miami's some great team. They're not. But because there are 2 opponents that I look at in the playoffs and say, you know what? I don't know if Kenny Atkinson has a big coaching advantage over those guys. Eric Spoelstra, I don't think he has a coaching advantage. Rick Carlisle, I think with Indiana, who the Cavs could see in the next round, I think Rick Carlisle is an awesome coach too, and I think he and Kenny are on similar levels. I would put Eric Spoelstra above everybody else in the Eastern Conference. So I do think that this is a test for Kenny because he does not have a decided coaching advantage the way that he would have had it been Quinn Snyder, had it been Billy Donovan in Chicago, had it been Jamal Mosley with Orlando. Those would have all been just huge advantages on the bench for the Cavs. Miami's not. Eric Spoelstra is one of the best. He's one of the best postseason coaches. I think that he is so good as a coach. And Tyler Hero's had an awesome season. Bam Adebayo has not had a great season, but he's been good against the Cavs in spots this year. I just think that those guys are too good for me to sit here and say, yeah, the Cavs are going to sweep this series. I expect Miami to win 1 game. I don't think it gets to 6. If it gets to 7, we've got bad news. I expect the Cavs are going to win this series in 5 games. I don't think that the Heat are anything to be scared about. I think if nothing else, they are a really, really strong first round test for the Cavs, but not so much that it could derail things about where this postseason should be headed towards for the Cavs. As you know, at this point, game 1 is tomorrow night, 7 p.m., Rocket Arena, Cavs, Heat, game 1, NBA playoffs. I will be there. I will be at all of the Cavs postseason games, home and road. I booked my flights last night to Miami. I had to cancel flights to Atlanta. I thought they were going to win, so I had booked. Canceled my flights to Atlanta, rebooked to Miami. I'll be in Miami next Friday through Tuesday. Plan is to go to every Cavs playoff game, home and road. And the way that this podcast is done well enough that's realistic. That's a possibility. That's something I can do. The Substack, the Inside Shot, if you guys support there, that is the way that I can pay for these trips. The support that I get from you guys is what makes all of this possible. All I want to do is bring you guys the best Cavs coverage that you could ask for, and any support goes a long way, whether it's here, whether it's the Substack, whether it's signing up for the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter. I appreciate all of it. And as far as the Substack goes, it is 30% off right now for yearly subscriptions. If you want to support, That's the best way you can do it, aside from hitting the thumbs up button on this video, or it's $6 a month. I bought coffee this morning for $6. That's 1 month of Cavs coverage. I think it's a very fair price. I don't think that you can necessarily beat it. So if you feel like helping out the show, watching the show every day and doing that is the best way that you can, because the Cavs are going to be in the postseason for a long time this year. I plan on being at all of it. What I am planning on doing too, that's going to be different, is I'm going to plan on having like an instant reaction podcast after every single game, where I will have the normal Monday episode after Cavs Heat on Sunday, but I'm also planning on having like a 15-minute still in the arena, here are my thoughts podcast that goes up on Sunday night. So I'm going to plan on doing that after every single Cavs playoff game this year. So keep it tight, keep it locked in right here. Locked on Cavs, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked on Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And as we get out of here, hit that thumbs up button on YouTube. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell. Cavs Heat game 1 tomorrow. I'll be back talking with you after that.